My boyfriend rolled his eyes and said, "You're too dramatic." Then I packed his Xbox in bubble wrap and mailed it to his ex. Drama delivered. I'm Lila, 27, female, and for the last 2 years I thought I was sharing a life with someone who could be counted on to pass the salt and hold my hand through the scary stuff. Turns out I was dating a man who specialized in understatement and eye rolls until things broke. Big surprise. Ethan, 29, male, is the kind of guy who can make you laugh with one dumb joke and then make you feel insane with one sentence. He works in systems ops, which explains why he gets twitchy over anyone who isn't logical on his schedule. He has a laugh that sounds like a skateboard landing on gravel and hands that twitch when he's irritated. When we met, he brought me coffee at dawn and learned the names of my plants. He fixed my sink one rainy night and kissed my forehead like he'd invented tenderness. That version of him is the one I fell for. The other version, the one who says, "You're too dramatic," after I tell him I'm scared about something real, is the one who's been showing up more often lately. Cassie, 26, female, is the ghost that follows Ethan into every argument. She's his ex from before me, not the kind who crops up in old photos or spiteful texts, but the kind who hovered in his stories and got the right laugh at the right time. He never talked about her much, but when he did, his eyes softened in a way they never did when I told him about the night my dad called with bad news. "She gets me," he said once, like it was a fact carved into the marble of his life, and I was the temporary chalk doodle beside it. That phrasing used to twist me up with petty jealousy. Lately it felt like a missing Jason bracket in a program that otherwise ran just fine. Small, but catastrophic. You need context for the eye roll. Saturday night we were on the couch. My leg was numb from sitting on it for 2 hours, and the show was a dumb comedy we both liked. I told him quietly that I'd been thinking about moving my mom closer. She'd had another fall, the kind where you look at someone's calluses differently after. My chest tightened and my hands tried to make sense of words that didn't want to be neat. I watch him like I used to watch him show me how to roast a chicken. Careful, tender, hands steady. He rolled his eyes. Not the tiny accidental roll people do when they're sleepy. The full body, upper lip involved, "This is an inconvenience to my dignity" roll. He said, "Lila, you're being dramatic." Sheesh. The word dramatic is a witch's brew in our house. He throws it like a blanket over my actual feelings until they stop breathing. I felt something unclench inside me at that, and it wasn't relief. It was a slow, cold recognition that the guy who calls me dramatic will never call me a priority. After he went to bed, I stood in the dark measuring the weight of things. There was a framed photo on the mantle of us 2 summers ago. Sunburned, dumb grins, nothing filtered, nothing staged. I picked it up, turned it over, thought about how many times he'd laughed like it was a chorus, and how many times he'd left the room mid-sentence. I didn't smash it. I almost did. Instead, I set it face down, like a card in a game I hadn't learned the rules to yet. There's a difference between being petty and being deliberate. I don't like being petty, but I don't like being erased either. If he was going to file my feelings under overreacting, I decided I wasn't going to file myself anywhere. I went to the guest room and listened to the quiet hum of his Xbox, his sanctuary, his night and weekend ritual, the thing he loved more than he loved asking me how my day really was. It was an object that represented his time, his comfort, his blind spots. I fell asleep making plans in the way people do when they're not sure if they're brave or tired. Small, tidy schemes that feel moral in the moment. Tomorrow, I told myself, I'll call my friend Sam and start packing. Tomorrow felt like a promise I could keep without permission. The morning after felt like a hangover without alcohol. I woke up in the guest room to the low hum of Ethan's Xbox still in sleep mode, its little green eye glowing at me like it knew. He was in the kitchen, humming some stupid jingle he'd heard on TikTok, acting like nothing had happened. That's Ethan's specialty, acting like nothing ever means anything. He set a plate down in front of me, burnt toast, eggs overcooked into little rubber discs, and said, "See? Breakfast for my dramatic girlfriend." Like it was a joke, like it was playful. My skin crawled. I forced a smile because if I didn't, he'd accuse me of sulking. That's his other move, labeling me before I can even explain myself. Here's the thing about Ethan. He never yells. He's not the door-slamming type. He's the calm, condescending sigh kind of guy, which sounds easier to handle until you realize how heavy a sigh can feel when it's aimed at every single thing you do. And then when you finally crack, when you finally scream back, you look like the unhinged one. After breakfast, he plopped down on the couch with his controller, headset on, laughing with his online buddies. Not one word about what I'd told him the night before. Not one word about my mom, her fall, the thing that had been crushing my chest for weeks. I stood there in the hallway listening to him joke with strangers, my hands shaking. It was like watching him pour all his warmth and care into pixels while I was standing there starving for scraps. I went to our bedroom, his closet on the left, mine on the right. On the top shelf sat a shoebox labeled random. I'd peeked in once before, curious. It wasn't random. Old letters, photos, little trinkets, most of it from Cassie. The ex. A movie ticket stub, a dumb Polaroid of them at a carnival, a handwritten note where she called him the only person who understands me. I stared at that box for a long time, the words burning. He kept that but rolled his eyes when I asked him to care about my mom. I closed the lid and shoved it back where it was, but something shifted in me. It wasn't just anger, it was clarity. That afternoon, I called my best friend Sam, 28, male. He's known me since high school, back when I used to wear ripped Converse and write bad poetry about crushes that never noticed me. Sam's the kind of friend who actually listens, doesn't interrupt, doesn't make me feel like I'm begging for basic empathy. I told him about the eye roll, the breakfast joke, the box. He went quiet for a moment and then said, "Lila, he doesn't take you seriously, and you've been too scared to admit that for months." The truth stung, but it was a clean sting. I realized Sam had been seeing it all along. The way Ethan dismissed me, minimized me, slowly hollowed me out. That night, I didn't wait for Ethan to fall asleep. I walked straight into the living room, past his headset laughs, and turned off the Xbox mid-game. He exploded, not violently, but with this incredulous laugh like I'd broken a sacred commandment. "What the hell, Lila? That's my raid. You don't just turn off my game." His voice was sharp for once, not sighing, not calm, and I said, without even raising my voice, "You don't just turn off me." His jaw clenched, controller dangling in his hand. I could see the rage simmering under his skin, not the yelling kind, but the kind that doesn't forget, the kind that comes back later in some form you don't expect. I went to bed that night knowing two things. Ethan wasn't going to let that slide, and I wasn't going to either. The Xbox wasn't just a console anymore. It was the symbol, his precious, glowing altar. And I'd just put my hand on it. I had no idea yet how far that small act would push both of us. Don't forget to subscribe. The morning after I shut off his Xbox, the air in the apartment felt wrong. Too quiet, too still. Like the silence after lightning but before the thunder. Ethan didn't come into the bedroom that night. He'd slept on the couch. When I walked into the kitchen, he was already there, leaning against the counter with his arms crossed, smirking like he was waiting for me to apologize. "Feel better?" he asked, like I'd just thrown a tantrum. His tone was cool, detached, but his eyes had this gleam, like he enjoyed watching me squirm. I poured myself coffee without answering. My hands were steady, but my chest was buzzing with dread. He didn't push me right then, he just let the silence drag, sipping his drink loudly, like he was daring me to break first. The day was normal on the surface. He went to work, I worked from home, we barely texted. But when I opened my laptop, I noticed my Spotify account had been logged out. Then my Netflix, then my Apple ID, passwords changed, all without warning. When I asked him about it later, he shrugged. "Maybe you got hacked. Shouldn't use such easy passwords." His lips twitched like he was fighting a smile. That's when I knew. He was retaliating, but not in the obvious screaming way. He was poking at me, cutting off little pieces of my daily life. 2 nights later, it escalated. I came home from visiting my mom to find my journals spread across the dining table. Private journals. Years of them. Stuff I'd written about him, about my insecurities, about Cassie. He was sitting at the table flipping through one like it was a magazine. "Wow," he said, without looking up. "You really do think everything's about you. This is dramatic." He held up a page where I'd written about feeling invisible when he gamed for hours. My throat closed. That was a different kind of violence. Not physical, but invasive, violating. I snatched the journal out of his hand, but the damage was already done. He'd read me, dissected me, weaponized me. I shouted, really shouted, voice cracking. You had no right! And finally, Ethan dropped the calm act. He slammed his hand on the table, rattling the mugs. You turned off my Xbox. You don't respect me. You don't respect my space, so don't start crying about yours. It was the first time I'd seen his composure break. His face was red, his voice shaking. And in that moment, something clicked. He wasn't calm. He wasn't above it all. He was just petty and cruel in different packaging. I gathered my journals, shoved them into a bag, and locked them in the trunk of my car that night. When I came back inside, Ethan was scrolling on his phone, pretending none of it happened. But I caught a glimpse of the screen reflected in the window. Cassie's Instagram profile. He wasn't just retaliating against me. He was reopening doors he knew would cut me deepest. I went to bed shaking, my mind running wild. He wanted me to beg, to snap, to apologize. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and thought about Sam's words. He doesn't take you seriously. That's when the seed of my revenge started to sprout. Because if Ethan thought I was too dramatic, maybe I needed to give him drama he'd never forget. And I knew exactly where to start. With the glowing little box in the living room he thought I'd never touch again. Ethan underestimated me. That was his first mistake. His second was thinking I'd just sit there while he toyed with my life like it was one of his raid missions. The night after I caught him scrolling Cassie's Instagram, I watched him from the hallway. He was laughing into his headset, controller in his hands, pizza box on the coffee table. From the outside, it looked so normal, so harmless. But I couldn't unsee the journals spread across the table, my words read out like a joke. I couldn't forget the eye roll when I told him about my mom. I couldn't shake the thought that while I was bleeding out in real time, he was fantasizing about someone who used to get him. That was when the Xbox became more than plastic and wires. It became the perfect stage. The next morning, while Ethan showered, I grabbed a roll of bubble wrap from the closet and crouched in front of his console. I wrapped it carefully, like it was precious cargo. Every pop of the bubble wrap under my fingers felt like a little exhale, like I was packaging up every sigh, every dismissal, every time he made me feel like an overreacting idiot. I taped the box shut and slid it into the trunk of my car under my journals. Where was it going? Straight to Cassie. I had her address saved from when she'd once mailed Ethan something by mistake months into our relationship. He'd brushed it off. Oh, she still has some of my stuff, no big deal. But now it was my big deal. I drove to the post office, my heart hammering, palms sweating. The woman behind the counter didn't even look twice. Just weighed the box, slapped on a label, and asked if I wanted insurance. No, I said, voice trembling. Let fate handle it. By the time I got back, Ethan was sitting on the couch, hair damp, scrolling through his phone. He looked up, squinting. Where'd you go? Just errands, I said, forcing casual. My pulse was screaming in my ears, but I managed to pour myself a glass of water without spilling it. That evening, he noticed. I was brushing my teeth when I heard it. The frantic shuffle of cords, the scrape of furniture, then, Lila, where the hell is my Xbox? I walked into the living room, toothbrush still in my mouth, and shrugged. Maybe it got hacked. His face twisted, red blooming up his neck. He tore apart the entertainment center, yanking open drawers like it might magically appear. He was muttering under his breath, half to himself, half to me, you wouldn't. But I would. And I did. That night, Ethan didn't sleep on the couch. He didn't sleep at all. He paced the apartment like a caged animal, slamming doors, texting furiously. Once I heard him on the phone, voice low and sharp, I caught one word, Cassie. By morning, he was a storm. No more sighs, no more smirks. He accused me flat out, eyes wild, hands gesturing too big. You think this is funny? You think you can just mess with me like that? I just looked at him and said, drama, right? Isn't that what I do? He froze, breathing heavy, like he didn't know whether to scream or laugh. For the first time, I saw fear flicker behind his eyes. Not fear of me, but fear of losing control. And that was the hook. Because Ethan wasn't just going to implode quietly, he was going to drag everyone into his spiral. I didn't know yet how far he'd take it, but the Xbox was gone, Cassie had it now, and Ethan's mask was slipping fast. Don't forget to subscribe. Update. Wow. I did not expect the reaction to my story. Some of you are calling me a queen. Some of you think I've gone off the deep end. And a handful of you sent me DMs saying I should have set the Xbox on fire instead. Tempting, but I wanted him haunted, not just pissed. A lot of you asked if Cassie actually got the Xbox. Oh, she did. I know because yesterday morning I woke up to 15 missed calls from Ethan, back to back, followed by a string of texts that didn't even make sense. Stuff like, "What the fuck did you do? Why are you obsessed with her? You just ruined my life." Then, the kicker, a screenshot. Cassie had posted a photo on her Instagram story of the Xbox, wrapped in bubble wrap with the caption, "When your ex's new girl sends you a gift. Thanks, Lila." She tagged him, tagged me, tagged everyone. I didn't even have to expose him. She did it for me. You should have seen Ethan. He stormed around the apartment like a cartoon villain, pacing, throwing pillows, punching the back of the couch. He called Cassie, begged her to delete it. She didn't. In fact, she doubled down, commenting on her own story with, "Guess some things really do come full circle." The wild part? Some of his gamer buddies followed Cassie too, and they started DMing him screenshots, teasing him. The humiliation wasn't private. It was public, shared, spreading like wildfire. And here's where I admit something. When I saw that story, I laughed, like ugly laughed. It wasn't just about the Xbox, it was about finally seeing him scramble for once. He'd spent months making me feel small, dramatic, crazy. And suddenly, he was the one unraveling. But it didn't stop there. Ethan's not the type to just sit with humiliation. He's been making noise, texting mutual friends, calling my mom, yes, my mom, to tell her I'm unstable. He even left a voicemail for Sam, saying I was spiraling and needed professional help. So yeah, the drama I delivered is only just beginning. And to the person in the comments who wrote, "Girl, he's going to lose his mind when he realizes you've got the upper hand." You were right. I can feel it. He's slipping. And I don't think he's going to go quietly. I'll keep you posted because something tells me this Xbox stunt was just the opening act. The day after Cassie posted the Xbox on her Instagram story, Ethan was a volcano. He barely spoke to me, just muttered curses under his breath as he stomped around the apartment, slamming cabinets, leaving lights on, making a show of every single movement. It wasn't silence, it was performance. By the afternoon, it escalated. He called me into the living room and pointed at the TV. "Do you get it now?" he snapped. On the screen was Cassie's profile, her story still live, with comments underneath from people I didn't even know. Laughing emojis, inside jokes, one person writing, "Guess she upgraded, bro." Ethan turned to me, eyes bloodshot, and hissed, "You've embarrassed me. You've humiliated me in front of everyone." His voice cracked on that last word like it was a personal apocalypse. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt calm, like I'd finally balanced the scale. But Ethan wasn't about to let me have the last move. That night, while I was in the shower, he snapped. I came out wrapped in a towel to find my phone sitting in the middle of the kitchen table. Unlocked. He'd gone through it. Messages, photos, everything. And he wasn't subtle. He'd left it open on a thread with Sam, one where I'd vented about Ethan, called him manipulative, said I was starting to think I didn't love him anymore. He looked at me with this eerie stillness and said, "So Sam's the one you really want, huh?" My stomach dropped. "You had no right to—" "No right." He laughed, sharp and brittle. "You send my Xbox to my ex and I have no right to know who you're planning to replace me with?" I tried to grab my phone, but he snatched it up and shoved it in his pocket. Then he grabbed my journals out of the trunk of my car, I don't even know how he found the spare key, and dumped them on the kitchen counter. "You want drama? Let's give everyone drama," he sneered. He snapped photos of the journal pages, my private thoughts, my fears, my writing about him. I lunged for the phone, but he shoved me back hard enough that I hit the fridge. My towel nearly slipped, humiliation burning my face. "I'll send these to Cassie, to Sam. Hell, maybe I'll just post them," he said. That was the first time I saw him truly unhinged. His hands were shaking, his breath ragged. He wasn't sighing anymore. He was vibrating with rage. Something in me shifted then. I realized Ethan wasn't just petty. He was dangerous. Not the kind who throws punches, but the kind who destroys you piece by piece until you don't recognize yourself. So I stopped begging. I stopped explaining. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Do it. Send them. Post them. Show everyone exactly who you are. For a second, his mask slipped. He didn't expect me to call his bluff. He froze, phone clutched tight, jaw clenched. Then he stormed out, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. I sat on the kitchen floor, shaking, but something inside me was steady. He wanted me scared. Instead, I was plotting. Because if Ethan thought mailing his Xbox to Cassie was dramatic, he had no idea what was coming next. The next morning, I woke up to a buzzing phone. 30 notifications in a row. My heart plummeted before I even unlocked it. Ethan had gone nuclear. He'd taken screenshots of my journals, not everything, but the worst out-of-context lines. My fears about my mom's health, my doubts about him, one raw sentence I'd written after a fight that said, "Sometimes I wish I'd never met him." He plastered them on Facebook with a long, self-pitying caption about how I was unstable and obsessed with destroying him. He tagged me. He tagged Cassie. He even tagged Sam. By the time I saw it, friends and family had already piled in. Some people messaged me, horrified on my behalf. Others stayed quiet. But the worst was seeing people like his post. People we both knew. My phone rang. It was Sam. "Lila, don't say anything. Don't post. He's trying to bait you into a public meltdown." But Ethan wasn't done. That night, he showed up at my mom's house. She called me, voice trembling, saying he'd knocked on her door at 9 p.m., smiling like everything was fine, then launched into a speech about how I needed help, and she should convince me to take a break before I hurt myself or someone else. My mom was shaken, confused, embarrassed. That was when I snapped. This wasn't just humiliation anymore. This was character assassination. He wasn't trying to win me back, he was trying to rewrite the narrative, make me the villain, the crazy one. And then Cassie entered the chat, literally. She DM'd me on Instagram with a screenshot of his messages to her. He'd been blowing up her phone, calling me unhinged, begging her to meet up, trying to get sympathy. Her message was short. "You were right to send me the Xbox. He hasn't changed." For the first time, I realized I wasn't alone in this. Cassie had lived through his manipulations too. She wasn't my enemy, she was proof of his pattern. I spent that night on the floor of my bedroom, phone in hand, staring at all the chaos. And then I remembered Sam's voice. "Don't give him what he wants. Hit him where it hurts." Ethan's weakness was always the same. His image. He needed to be the reasonable one, the calm one, the misunderstood victim. So if I was going to end this, I couldn't just fight back. I had to expose him in a way he couldn't spin. I opened my laptop and pulled up the shoebox I'd hidden earlier, the one full of Cassie's letters and keepsakes he'd never thrown away. I snapped photos of those notes, the carnival Polaroid, the way she'd written "the only person who understands me." Then I paired them with screenshots of his texts to her, begging for sympathy while tearing me apart online. And I saved them all into one folder titled, "For When He Pushes Too Far." Because he wasn't done yet, and neither was I. Update 2. So, yeah. Things exploded way faster than I thought they would. I wasn't even going to post again yet, but after what just happened, I need to vent somewhere people get it. First off, thank you. Seriously. Reading through all your comments, the jokes, the DMs, even the tough love stuff, it's been keeping me sane. One person wrote, "Girl, you didn't mail his Xbox, you mailed his ego." And I laughed so hard I almost dropped my phone. Another DM just said, "Cassie is the chaos ally you didn't know you needed." Both facts. But a lot of you told me to prepare for him to escalate, and holy hell, you were right. Ethan's Facebook stunt got more attention than he planned. Instead of everyone siding with him, people started asking questions, like, "Why are you posting her private journals?" And "Didn't you just get tagged in your ex's story?" The cracks in his perfect mask are showing. The real kicker? Cassie clapped back publicly. She commented on his post with, "Funny, you didn't think she was unstable when you were texting me last night." Then she attached a screenshot of his DMs where he called me crazy and begged her to at least hear him out. The post blew up. His gamer buddies roasted him in the comments. One even wrote, "Bro lost his girl and his console. People are clowning him, not me." And Ethan cannot handle being the punchline. He stormed into the apartment earlier, pacing, muttering that everyone doesn't understand the full story. He tried to corner me, waving his phone in my face, demanding I tell people I'd forgiven him. When I refused, he actually cried. Not sad tears, angry, frustrated ones. Then he hurled the remote across the room, smashing it against the wall. That was his first physical outburst. And all I could think was, this is who he really is, finally spilling out for everyone to see. I'm not going to lie. I'm scared of how far he'll take this. He's unraveling, and I don't think he's going to stop until I do something that makes it impossible for him to recover his little reasonable guy act. So here's where I'm at. I have the shoebox of Cassie's letters, the screenshots of his begging texts, everything. And I'm sitting on it. Because if he pushes me one more time, I'm going to drop all of it. Every piece of proof that he's a manipulative mess who can't let go of his ex. And when I do, there won't be any sighs or eye rolls left for him to hide behind. Stay tuned, because if he thought the Xbox was drama, he hasn't seen anything yet. Ethan didn't just simmer after Cassie exposed him. He boiled. Every little thing I did became an excuse for him to lash out. If I stayed quiet, he accused me of plotting. If I left the apartment, he demanded to know where I'd gone, who I was with. He started snooping constantly. My bag, my car, even the laundry basket. 2 nights after the Facebook fiasco, he finally went completely off the rails. I was sitting in the living room when I heard pounding on the door. I opened it to find our neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, clutching her phone. She said Ethan had been in the hallway, ranting to her about how I was cheating with Sam and trying to ruin his reputation. She was shaken, told me she'd recorded the whole thing because she felt unsafe. When she left, Ethan came barreling in, face red, sweat dripping down his temples. "Why are you making me look crazy?" he shouted, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frames again. "Why are you talking to everyone about me?" "I didn't say a word to her," I snapped back, finally losing it. "She saw you melting down all on your own." That was the breaking point. He swept his arm across the counter, knocking everything, mugs, plates, even a framed photo of us, onto the floor. The crash echoed through the apartment, sharp and final. He stood there breathing heavy, fists clenched, chest heaving like he wanted to punch a hole through the wall. And I realized then, if I didn't pull the trigger on my plan soon, he was going to destroy me piece by piece until I was the one apologizing for his violence. So I did it. I gathered everything. The shoebox of Cassie's letters, the Polaroids, his desperate DMs to her calling me unstable while begging for another chance. I paired those with the video Mrs. Alvarez had sent me of him ranting in the hallway, screaming nonsense about Sam. Then, with shaking hands, I compiled it all into one neat little folder and sent it out. First to his gamer buddies, then to our mutual friends, then to his boss, the one he always bragged about impressing with his calm and rational demeanor. And finally, I sent it to Cassie with one line, "Thought you'd appreciate the full story." The fallout was immediate. My phone buzzed nonstop with notifications. His friends roasted him in group chats. His boss sent him a formal email, which he accidentally left open on the computer, about unprofessional conduct outside the workplace. Cassie posted another story, this time with a screenshot of his begging texts overlaid with, "Men don't change, they just recycle excuses." Ethan's world, his image, his precious control, was collapsing, and I was watching it happen in real time. When he realized what I'd done, he stared at me like he didn't recognize me. His lips trembled, eyes glassy, like he wanted to beg but couldn't figure out how. Then, without a word, he grabbed his keys and stormed out. The door slammed, and for the first time in months, the apartment was silent. Not tense, not humming with dread, just silent. I sat on the couch, shaking, adrenaline crashing. But underneath the fear, there was a strange, sharp relief, because the truth was out there now. And Ethan couldn't take it back. The night Ethan stormed out, I sat on the couch with my knees pulled to my chest, waiting for the sound of his keys in the lock, for the vibration of another angry text, for the next eruption. But the hours dragged by, and he never came back. The quiet should have felt like victory, but at first it just felt eerie, like when a storm rips through and you're left standing in the wreckage, wondering what the hell just happened. The next morning, I woke up to more notifications. His Facebook had gone dark. Deleted or deactivated, I couldn't tell. His gamer group was buzzing with memes, screenshots, jokes at his expense. Cassie had doubled down with another post, a photo of the Xbox hooked up to her TV with the caption, "Drama delivered. Thanks again, Lila." She didn't tag me this time, but she didn't have to. Everyone knew. And Sam, he showed up at my door. He didn't say much at first, just pulled me into a hug so tight my knees almost gave. I hadn't realized how tense my body had been until that moment. We sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by broken mugs and the overturned photo frame I still hadn't cleaned up. "You know he's going to try again, right?" Sam said quietly. "Yeah," I admitted. "But he can't spin it anymore, not after this." And he didn't. Ethan tried one last desperate move a few days later, sent a mass email to some of our mutual friends claiming I was vindictive and out to ruin his career. But the receipts I'd dropped were already circulating. People weren't buying it. His boss had already called him in for a disciplinary meeting. His carefully curated image as the calm, logical guy was shattered. The apartment still smelled like him. His cologne on the jacket he left behind, the faint scent of his cheap body wash in the bathroom. But instead of hurting, it felt like proof that he was really gone. I boxed up his remaining stuff, shirts, chargers, random crap he'd left in drawers. I didn't bubble wrap anything this time. I left the box outside the door with a sticky note. "Pick it up when I'm not here." And then I turned the photo frame face up again. The one from 2 summers ago, where we looked sunburned and stupid and happy. I stared at it for a long time before sliding the picture out, tearing it in half, and dropping my side into the trash. His half I left on the counter, right where his Xbox used to sit. Because the truth is, Ethan was right about one thing. I am dramatic. I feel things loudly, messily, unapologetically. But I'm not too dramatic. I'm exactly the right amount. And now he gets to live with the story he created. The guy who lost his console, his ex, and his dignity in one swoop. As for me, I'm finally breathing again. I've been spending more time with my mom, helping her settle into a safer place. Sam's been around a lot too, not as a replacement, but as a reminder that some people really do listen. And sometimes, late at night, I catch myself smiling at the thought. Ethan thought he could drown me out with sighs and eye rolls. Instead, he taught me how to deliver the kind of drama no one forgets.